Welcome to episode 64 of Motivating Mondays, a weekly podcast and YouTube series dedicated to help Canadian job developers and other employer engagement professionals develop the tools, resources, expertise, and network to excel at achieving sustainable employment outcomes for their clients or students. My name is Christian St. Cyr, National Director of the Canadian Job Development Network, and today we're going to talk about whether extroverts have an advantage in job search and what introverts can do about it. While we think the world nicely breaks down into just introverts and extroverts, there's actually a tremendous amount of complexity to it. While it might come as a surprise to many, in temperament testing, I typically side closer to the introvert side of the scale rather than the extrovert side. And while most people would say that this makes me an introvert, the reality is actually far more complex. There is no blood test to determine whether a person is an introvert or an extrovert. It's a combination of how a person thinks, where they feel comfortable, how they process ideas, and where they recharge. As an introvert, I'm comfortable speaking to large groups, but I just don't love one-on-one conversations with people I don't know very well. It's very socially exhausting for me. And while a long day of training or attending a conference, I might feel completely wiped out, for an extrovert, they might feel all charged up. Unfortunately, job search, by its very nature, requires people to draw on the skills and abilities and natural disposition of extroverts, which can be a challenge for their introvert counterparts. As an employer expects candidates to be warm and engaging in a one-on-one interview and sometimes even in a panel discussion. The interview requires candidates to process information verbally on the spot and confidently argue why the employer should hire them as opposed to someone else. So often the employer states right out they're looking for someone who is a good fit for the organization. How much of this is governed by the interview? Can you imagine if employers were to ask all candidates for a position that they were considering to hire to write a 2,000-word essay on why they would be the best candidate for the position and then make their choice based on nothing other than the individual essays? Also, employers just want to find don't want to just find a good fit for themselves. They want to find a good fit for their team and for their customers. If introverts need time to recharge or a balance of interaction, how many employers are going to subjectively decide not to hire those individuals just simply because they don't seem to be a good fit? Earlier in my career, I did some instruction on delivering group temperament testing. One of the instructions we were told to give groups early on is that there is not any one temperament, that there isn't to be any temperament bashing among participants, meaning that we're not to suggest that introverts or extroverts are better. They just reason and act differently. Nevertheless, I believe we inherently believe one is better. I believe that introverts feel like introverts are better and extroverts feel like extroverts are better. Moreover, I believe how our job market and workplace is constructed subjectively tells us and tells candidates that extroverts are better. So, after all of this, would you believe that there's really no such thing as introverts or extroverts? Like determining blood type, the paradigm assumes that you are either one or the other, but instead there's a spectrum, and we all exist somewhere on that spectrum. According to an article published by Randstad, the main difference for introverts versus extroverts is how they recharge their emotional batteries. Introverts derive energy from alone time. They feel refreshed and alert after spending quiet time to recharge in non-social settings where they can focus on themselves and organize their thoughts. Introverts tend to lean towards traits such as introspectiveness, measured decision-making, fierce independence, and being adverse to change. Meanwhile, extroverts feel energized by spending time with other people. They feel most in their element when they are surrounded by people and tend to feel drained after spending too much time on their own. Extroverts are also known to be social butterflies who speak their mind, jump ahead first into decision-making, and for being highly charismatic and likable. These two perspectives seem extreme, but what about me? I test as an introvert, but invariably I'm extremely close to the line between introvert and extrovert. What about the extrovert who tests very close to being an introvert? Welcome to the world of ambiverts. Ambiverts are close to the middle of the spectrum, borrow strengths and weaknesses from both, and this depends on their mood and the situation, according to Randstad. So often we compare, or at least I compare, job development to sales. Who do you think makes the best salespeople? Introverts or extroverts? In his book, To Sell is Human, Daniel Pink debunks the common myth that extreme extroverts make the best salespeople or persuaders. He asserts that ambiverts, people who will fall in the exact middle of the introvert-extrovert spectrum, outperform both. Now, Pink acknowledges that extreme introverts do have a difficult time pushing themselves into social engagement, but extreme extroverts have just as much difficulty. Extreme extroverts often struggle to sell because they are too eager to talk, fail to listen to the client's actual needs, and risk coming across as too aggressive, according to Pink. On the other end of the spectrum, extreme introverts may be too timid, allow the prospect or the client to completely control the conversation, and fail to close the deal. Pink argues that selling and persuading are fundamentally about problem solving and empathy. Ambiverts naturally balance the extrovert's instinct to initiate conversations with the introvert's ability to carefully listen and curate information. And while this take on temperament analysis is informative, it doesn't really change the reality that you are working with individuals who are either extroverts, introverts, or ambiverts, and so what does it matter how they communicate? They are going to either struggle or succeed based on their unique circumstances. In all job development, we are helping individuals overcome challenges to succeed in achieving sustainable employment. If someone's natural temperament is not suited to job search, either because they have difficulty raising their voice or because they talk themselves out of the job, we need to be able to recognize this and make suggestions that will help these individuals overcome these challenges. For the extreme extroverts, we need to encourage them to listen carefully, respond to what individuals have shared, and try to avoid taking the conversation into unexpected areas. I'm fond of the phrase, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth and should use them in that order." The greatest support we can provide extreme extroverts is to train them in active listening and reflective responses. Most of the literature on job search for extreme introverts suggests that they should lean into their strength areas, seek out opportunities to provide written responses, strengthen their resumes and cover letters, and avoid extensive group interactions immediately prior to an interview. These are good suggestions, yes. We also need to be able to help people recognize that while job search is uncomfortable, this is how it is done. For the purposes of job search, people need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We need to help introverts understand that they are being judged against candidates who are more comfortable articulating their strengths. Just as with all job search candidates, we need to emphasize that there is nothing wrong with discussing their strengths, touting their achievements, and making a sincere connection with a prospective employer. With this guidance in mind, there are 2 areas that we must address before we go on. While it's certainly reasonable to prep the extreme introverts and extroverts in being as successful as possible in an interview or at a job fair, we need to be mindful of the workplace that our clients really want to work in. For the extreme introverts, working in a role where there is constant interaction with people all day long is going to be an ordeal, and not one that is likely to last. Just as with the extreme extrovert, to be working in a role where there is no interaction with people all day long is going to be exhausting. In this capacity, we need to be able to articulate these concerns with our clients or students to ensure they are making decisions that are truly reflective of their natural styles. Finally, just as with our clients who are natural introverts or extroverts or ambiverts, and probably additional categories than those, we too have our own natural styles. Our work requires us to engage new people every day, and we have to wonder whether this is a good fit for us as well. If our natural tendency is to have limited interaction, there can be ways to build systems of engagement and self-care that will help us be as successful as possible. Whenever I'm talking to a prospective job developer or really anyone who wants to work in employer engagement, I always stress that this is a people business. Our employer relationships require regular interpersonal care and support. Our clients and student supports require not only providing professional advice, but also the ability, as with employers, to listen with 2 ears and speak with 1 mouth. I just wanted to remind you that next week, July 16th, is the deadline to register for developing a comprehensive approach to effective job development. And this is going to be the last week to register and still get the 35% discount on registration. This workshop is taking place in September on 5 separate days for 5 separate time zones. On September 21st, we have the Pacific time zone, September 22nd, the Mountain, September 23rd, Central, September 24th, Eastern, and September 25th, which is a Friday, the Atlantic time zone. All sessions go from 9 until 3 p.m. If you haven't yet taken this training or you have a colleague who would like to take it, just remember to get your registration in before next Thursday. If you would like to learn more, just go to jobdevelopment.org/pro-d. Or you can just send me an email. My email address is cstcyr@labormarketsolutions.ca. Thank you so much for joining us. These sessions are available on YouTube and most podcast platforms. Just search for Motivating Mondays wherever you download podcasts and subscribe, like, or share. It really does help career professionals across Canada find these sessions. Now, we do these sessions actually live and for free every Monday morning on Microsoft Teams. We have job developers joining us from all across Canada, and it would be so great if you could join us. Just go to jobdevelopment.org to learn more, or just send me an email. My email address again is cstcyr@labormarketsolutions.ca. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing week.